Doctors and nurses of Reddit who have delivered babies to mothers who clearly cheated on their husbands. What was that like? Paramedic here. Had a mother give birth to a healthy baby in a home. Situational awareness had not helped me yet at this point. I asked if the father was here to cut the cord. We paramedics usually shy away from this duty because it opens us up to unwanted legal ramifications should something go wrong. There was a calm in the air after I asked the question and went on to do it myself. Come a few moments later, I was approached by another occupant of the home who informed me that this was a home for victims of sexual assault and that the father of the baby was indeed also the father of the mother and was currently incarcerated due to the aforementioned situation. It was an awkward ride to the hospital after that. Paramedic here. Our crew delivered a full birth in the back of our rig. We have 2 paramedics in the back with a PT, a driver, and I'm working on the laptop listening to info they are telling me to add to the report. All of a sudden, it goes kind of quiet. I hear the mother let out a very loud "oh crap, it's not white." She was very white. Few more seconds of silence, and I'm like, the driver alarm, beeping light on the center console sent from a button in the back, was pressed 2 times quickly, generally meaning to turn around, to get info for the report. I turn from the front passenger seat to see a very dark skin colored baby, I'm guessing Cuban. I can't see the mother's face, but all I see is her shaking her head. She begins to worry, saying that her husband is meeting us there at the hospital. He can't see this. I just continue the report, and I'm not sure what the problem is, but I guess we'll see when we get there. Flash forward to the we stop outside the ambulance bay. I get out to open the doors, and am met by another very white heavyset guy in a uniform shirt, dress pants and glasses. Asked me if his wife was in there, and she was in labor when he was coming home. Hospital policy dictates that we can't have random people, that we can't confirm identity that close to the rig when opening doors for PT safety. Security is there quick, holds him back a bit. We open the doors, roll the PT and her newborn out. He takes one look, sees the color of the baby, jaw drop, look of despair, like a 1,000-yard stare. Even security had a look like, wow, that woman fucked up, and this guy knows it now. Wife, babe, I can explain every bit of this. I know it looks weird, but I can. We wheel her into no sign of husband. Last I knew, the husband didn't check into the hospital as a visitor. I'm assuming he went home to pack his stuff. Had 2 women give birth a few days apart on my floor. Turns out they actually had the same baby daddy. The father of the 2 newborns got both patients pregnant around the same time. It was an interesting day for the social worker. In high school, my gym teacher was married to the biology teacher, who was also really good friends with my math teacher. Always saw them chatting and walking together. Well, the BO teacher got pregnant, and when she brought the baby in there was an unignorable resemblance to the math teacher. Her husband ended up driving to the nearest hospital and shooting himself dead in the parking lot. Was a big scandal at our relatively small private school. One of a few actually. So a friend of mine, he is unfortunately dead, had cancer and he was dating a girl for about 2 years. He then discovered he had cancer and that he would live at best 1 more year. His girlfriend announced to him a week later that she was pregnant. They were both white. He kept on saying that life is a joke. He was happy because he would have a baby now, but sad because he would die in a year. Anyway, 9 months later the baby was born, and it was black. He then disappeared for weeks, and we learned that he had died a month later. Felt so freaking sorry. I already made a comment, but I do have a story about a close call of this nature. So, a few years ago I respond to an ad of the NSFW nature. I was feeling adventurous of a request for a man to fulfill a cuckold fantasy. Basically they wanted a man who looked similar to the boyfriend of the couple to fuck the girlfriend while the boyfriend watched. There was a whole act about it. She'd call me by his name. I'd act clearly different and more sexually aggressive than him. Let the lie slip up a few times and badly cover it up, which she'd buy at 100%. Ick now. Make a whole act about it. Like playing out a porn script. Anyway, the deed is done and 9 months later I get a call from the girlfriend. She's pregnant and expecting within the week, and they're worried I might be the father. I did use a condom, but she wasn't on the pill and the paranoia was understandable. Also they hadn't had sex for a week before, and a couple weeks after, so the timing matched up. The baby came out. Either of us could be the father as it looks vaguely like both of us. It was a boy BTW. Naturally it was fucking tense and awkward as hell. It took a week for the DNA test to get back. The delay was agonizing. Thankfully it came back that I was in the clear. There was actually a bit of a celebration. When I got the word I cheered. They hugged. I gave them a handshake and a hug. Said my congratulations. Went home and drank a whole damn bottle of Absolute vodka to celebrate. A friend of mine tells the story of his aunt giving birth, in the 1970s or 80s, to a baby that at first glance appeared to be of Asian descent. Aunt and her husband are both Caucasian Midwesterners from long lines of the same sort, going back to Germany. There was evidently a shock moment, and then the aunt's father, my friend's grandfather, quipped, "Well, they say 1 in 7 babies is born Chinese," and everyone laughed. The tension broke, long enough for the doctor, also a white Midwesterner of German stock, said that likely the kid's color is just off due to the events of the birth. That baby is now a man in his 30s or 40s, and looks like your typical Midwesterner. He just had some tinge to his skin for a few hours following the birth, plus some dark hair at birth that has since lightened up. Jaundice. Not a doctor, but if I remember correctly, it is due to the baby's immune system going haywire during birth. They put babies under a blow lamp for up to 24 hours to make it go away. Newborn had chlamydia, got it from the mom, obviously. So the mom admits she was cheating on the dad, because there's no other way to explain that one. Except the dad was cheating too, with the other guy's girlfriend, and all 4 of them had chlamydia, with no idea who had it first. They also had no idea who the actual dad was. That was a rodeo. When my baby was born, people asked me if her father was Polynesian. Nope. He's a skinny white man. There was no doubt he was the father. She was born with thick black hair. She was a big baby, 4 kilograms, and had jaundice which made her look very tan. The hair fell out, the jaundice went away, she thinned out, and I now have a strawberry blonde haired 2-year-old that looks exactly like her papa. But man, if I hadn't known he was the only man I'd slept with, I would have some serious doubts. Had a patient who came into her for UT with her boyfriend of 4 months. His words. She was 19. Acting extremely dramatic for just having UT. We tell her we need urine. She urges us to cath her, which is really unusual, but she says she can't pee, so me and other nurse assume the position to put in a catheter with her lying on the gurney. At this point nurse screams, "Call L&D." She's crowning. L&D nurse gets in just in time to grab the child as it shoots out into her hands and is a living breathing baby. The girl swears she had no idea she was pregnant. They wheel her off to postpartum and the guy is just kind of left standing there, dumbstruck. We only been dating 4 months. I had no idea she was pregnant. She never mentioned it at all. As he just buried his head in his knees while he was sitting on the floor against the hallway wall. I felt so bad for the guy. Anesthesiologist here. C-sections are typically done under spinal anesthesia, and we are the ones at the head of the table keeping the mother calm and talking her through the procedure while the surgeons operate. I've seen it more than once, but I remember one in particular when the parents were both very Caucasian and the baby was very much not. The actual father obviously had to be very dark-skinned. At delivery, when the not father saw the baby, he just looked down at his wife, who was starting to cry, and calmly said, "You fricking wench," and walked out. She started screaming for him to come back, but there wasn't much she could do since she was, you know, still being operated on. She lost it to the point I eventually had to sedate her just a bit, because she was in danger of injuring herself. As far as I know, her husband never came back to the hospital. I don't know what happened after that. Not really relevant to the thread, but sometimes I like to tell the story about how, when I was having a C-section, I tried to communicate that I knew the procedure was starting, because I felt pressure on my skin. Unfortunately, what I managed to say was I felt that. My anesthesiologist went "oh shit" and gave me ketamine. I was tripping balls for my kid's birth, and all I remember is an unending hallway of doors, but there was no ceiling. It was just open to a psychedelic universe of stars. When I was wheeled to recovery, we passed my mother-in-law at the nursery. She turned to see me, and I helpfully informed her I'm HIIIIGH as a kite. While we are telling non-relevant C-section stories, my wife was laying on the table as my son was being born. I was up by her head with the anesthesiologist. I have known my wife for a very long time. She makes this face when she's about to vomit. So I tell the anesthesiologist that she's about to hurl. He says nothing we have her should cause nausea. She then turns her head and vomits all over him. He then hands me a suction hose and tells me to keep her from choking on her own vomit. So now I'm freaking out trying to keep my wife from drowning in her own vomit, on top of already freaking out because we were having an emergency C-section. My son and wife are fine now, but I still dislike that anesthesiologist greatly for the way he treated us. On a side note, when they tell you not to look around the curtain, don't. I really didn't need to see what my wife's organs looked like. My brother had a surprise baby this way. He and a coworker had a one-night stand while she was broken up with her ex. She gets back with her ex, ends up pregnant. Flash forward to the delivery day. The day my brother sends me a picture of a random baby out of the blue and says I think I'm a dad. She is white. Her boyfriend is black. My brother is white. Baby came out looking very white. I don't know how it went down in the hospital room, but I know they separated very soon after. My brother went to visit her in the hospital and asked her if she would let him take a paternity test. She agreed and it came back positive a week later. And that's how I got my surprise nephew. Mother to be warned, this could go one of two ways prior to delivery. Wasn't sure what she meant. She was white, as was her husband. Delivered baby was black. Then it all made sense. Edit. This happened about 4 years ago. Sorry to be anticlimactic, but I don't know where they are today or how the situation turned out. I can tell you that the dad left the room immediately and the mom burst into tears. So this leads me to believe he might have had a suspicion. Otherwise there might have been a little more shock. I honestly don't know. I have a white friend who is a superman of a dad. When his third child was born, she was obviously of mixed race. His white wife had an affair with a black man. The wife also had substance abuse issues before this pregnancy and was no longer dependable or stable as a mother. So my friend immediately divorced her and took custody of the kids. All of them. He's been raising his 2 bio kids and the third child who isn't technically his for the past decade. She's his princess and he loves her exactly like the other 2. Edited to answer a couple of questions. He is a straight man who has not remarried. He's done this all on his own, dated here and there, but nothing serious yet. He's too busy with 3 kids, full-time career, and a small business to run. Also, BO dad to the third child waived his rights immediately when he found out about her birth. He was mom's dealer and their fling was a one-time thing that resulted in pregnancy. He had zero interest in fatherhood. Edited again to add, some people say how they could never raise another man's child, especially one that was a product of adultery, but you have to consider that my friend went through the entire pregnancy preparing for this baby that he thought was his. So he bought a baby gear, painted a nursery, went to the doctor appointments, etc. He was heavily invested in this baby before she was ever born. He already loved her and felt she was his, so it wasn't a big leap for him to take her on as his own. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more future content.